Hi everybody and welcome. I'm Zan from Fell and Fair and I'm here with Amy Bradley from Folk with the Wood. And our video today is going to be discussing leather work and the different garments and materials and equipment that you can make out of leather, especially in its context to medieval and fantasy costume design. So Amy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I actually met Amy, well I didn't really meet Amy, I found Amy online probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer, as we were kind of both working through our Athelian Ranger costumes, which are very leather heavy.
Yes.
And so those were pieces that we actually, interestingly, were some of the few people in the world who were kind of pursuing how to figure out that costume. And so we kind of stayed in touch over the years. And then I was on a film last year, about a year ago, and somebody else had been doing some of the costume design, and actually my character got to wear one of her pieces, and it just showed up, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, I know who made this. So that was really cool. And then we met last year at Weekend Warrior. And actually, I guess we met in the spring, and then we're at Weekend Warrior together. So we've had a great time working together, and we've been working together in the shop all week now. So we wanted to take this time to talk to you guys about kind of 3 or 4 different areas of leatherwork. We want to tell you about the different types of leather to give you an introduction, because we have both gone through this whole process of taking years and thousands of dollars to figure out what is quality leather, both from when purchasing items that are already made or purchasing the materials themselves, how to work it best. And we want to save you guys a lot of the hassle and a lot of the financial loss that we had to undergo to learn that system. So Amy, tell us a little bit about how you got into leatherwork. How did all this kind of come about for you?
Well, I think it really started probably like for you way back when I was a kid and I first saw Lord of the Rings. That's where my love for all things medieval costuming, fantasy, just other worlds like that, that's where it was sparked for me. I first got into leatherwork when I was getting into reenactments and Renaissance fairs and festivals, and I had the excuse and reason to start making some of this stuff for myself. And I couldn't find what I was imagining in my mind anywhere. So I was like, well, I'll learn how to make it. So I started with really simple projects and scrap leather and just piecing things together. But the more projects I did, the more I learned how to put stuff together.
Yeah. And, it's, as we've both, we've begun to do this professionally. We both do this full time now.
We do.
Amy's company is Folk with the Wood is a little more heavy on the leatherwork stuff. Fell and Fair is more heavy on we do more of the fabric stuff, at least what we do on our direct to customer items. But leatherwork plays a huge role both in how we've gotten to where we are and in our day-to-day work. And so, like I said, the first thing I want to do as we're going over this, let's talk about some of the different types of leather that you have out there. So when you're looking to purchase something, like you've decided, let's skip to the design. If you want to watch our video on medieval fantasy costume design, you can go watch that. But let's say you've got your design figured out, you realize there's some things that you want to look like leather. Well, first of all, let's talk about what are some of the items that you can make out of leather, and then let's talk about the different types of leather and why.
Yeah, there's so much you can make with leather.
Yep. And so a lot of the context will be, is this a historical reproduction piece or is this something that is fantasy? And we'll give our 2 quick little disclaimers here. First of all, we're not going to talk about any direct historical reproductions today. If you are a reenactor and want to do those things perfectly, there's plenty of other resources out there for you. But if this is just a general interest in medieval fantasy historical stuff, this is going to hopefully be a lot of good information for you guys. And then also, we do obviously both make a living from this stuff. So we are very motivated to tell you how great our things are and for you to buy them. So please do. We're not trying to subtly hint or convince you, manipulate you into buying our stuff. We are straight up asking you, please buy our things because we think they're good. But that being said, let's talk about some of the items that you can get out of leather. So we have two kind of categories, I guess, of leather, basically hard and soft leather. We have garment leather or what's another term for hard?
Or like harness grade.
Harness grade, armor,
like
leather.
Belt leather.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. So let's talk about that sort of stuff. Obviously, we have a whole pile of bracers in front of us right here. You got your Gondorian Ranger bracers. I've got my Gondorian Ranger bracers. So we've taken different and very similar materials, but we've taken different approaches to how we made these and all the little details and stuff that goes into that. So so this is a great example of of common pieces of armor. You'll see things like bracers. You'll see things like greaves. Then of course you have not only armor, but you have other things that you use that stiffer leather for, like quivers. And so you've got your Gondorian Ranger quiver there. I've got mine. But this is a good example here. Amy's chosen a slimmer, kind of stiffer, heavier grade leather, right?
Yep.
And I've got a lighter grade, almost close to garment grade leather.
We did the bases differently.
Yeah, we did. We attached the bases differently. So she stitched hers. I laced mine. We both stitched on the design on the outside. I riveted mine. We both laced up the back, but riveted the straps on. So there's a lot of different ways that you can attach leather. You can glue it. You can stitch it either by hand or with a machine. You can lace it, or you can rivet or something like that.
Yeah, and hand stitching thicker leather is usually easier. If you don't have a heavy duty machine, you can hand do that stuff.
Yeah. You don't want to fight in most cases with a machine to do that sort of thing. Plus, the hand stitching creates a really cool look.
It does.
In addition to things like bracers and quivers, which are maybe more specific, obviously you have things like belts. Belts are huge. Everybody has to have them pretty much in all time.
Yep.
And so belts are a huge element. I know what you guys do, what we do. And so not only, though, do you have to deal with the leather of the belts, but you also have to deal with the hardware and stuff, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Yes.
So in addition to that sort of stuff, we have things like more garment layer or garment weight leather. So this is one of the vests from our Gondorian Ranger outfit. So you can see this is a goat skin. This right here is backed with felt or wool, actually, and padding. This is just plain goat skin, but that's a very light, thin leather that is used more for clothing and stuff. So when we're talking about this, some of the materials and the techniques apply more to the armor and buckles and that sort of stuff, while others are more garment based. But as you can see, if you can make clothes and accessories out of it, you can basically make everything out of leather. So it's really important that you kind of know what you're doing and that you pick the right type of leather. So Amy, let's talk about those types of leather. What sort of leather, if let's say the folks watching this are probably either interested in making their own or purchasing from a craftsman or a company that makes the stuff. So they're going to want to know what to look for when it comes to getting quality leather and what types of leather are available and how would that impact the look and feel of your garments.
Well, it depends on what you're buying. I mean, if you're looking for a belt, you want it to be made with a sturdy enough leather that it's actually going to hold up. Because every time you go through the holes, every time you twist it, tie it, straps, anything that's like load bearing. So
how is water going to affect it?
Exactly. So if you've got a sword or a shield strap or bracer straps, anything that's going to carry a load of any kind, let alone like bag straps on your back, anything like that, you're going to want it to be made with as durable and tough leather as possible. If you're looking for garment leather, lighter, thinner leather is going to be less hot to wear. It's going to be more comfortable. It's not going to like chafe. It's not going to rub. So
I usually go with goat skin for garment. Is that kind of what you?
I actually use cowhide, something like this. But basically something thin, soft, flexible.
Yep. So those are two great options. Goat hide, cowhide, as long as they're thin. Because cows can come with very thick leather.
Yes.
So when we're looking
is very versatile.
So when we're looking at, we'll may consider our thick leather. We there's usually it's either measured in millimeters or in ounces, which is I think ounce per square foot, right?
Yes.
We usually use the ounce system because we're on the imperial system and we're Americans and that sort of stuff. But in general, I would say, when you're looking for belts and that sort of stuff, you're looking like the 6 to 8 ounce category, right?
You are. And if you go online, there's a lot of conversion charts that are real easy to find that literally show the ounces, the inches, and the millimeters all next to each other. So no matter where you are, you can figure out how this leather is being measured. Yeah.
If you're looking for armor and stuff, you can get away with 6 ounce sometime, but if you want real protective value, you want more of the 10, 12 ounce kind of saddle skirting type leather. And then, but anywhere kind of in between those things will, if you want something that's really thick and durable, that's actually going to give you some protective value. Now, this, for example, is a piece of, this is probably close to a 8 ounce, maybe a 10 ounce leather thickness, but it's very soft. This is actually a bison hide.
I was just about to say, is that buffalo?
Yep. And so it's much more soft and flexible, which can be comfortable. It's not going to give you the rigidity and the protection value, but this is made to keep a bowstring off of an archer's forearm. So once again, depending on what you need it for, you don't probably want something super stiff on the inside of your forearm, which is why.
Your wrists.
Yeah, so that's why bracers, a lot of times, like the Ranger bracers, they end on the inside, they're open on the inside. Even this one, you can see it's much smaller on the inside than it is on the back, because you don't want anything impeding that movement, especially when you're trying to do something really technical, like shooting a bow. Something else, so obviously we have leather that is pre-dyed. So like Amy, you've got a kind of a bolt
This
here,
is like
hide here.
This is like oil tan hide. This is I think this is about 6 ounces. So it's got some firmness, but it's also flexible. So this is good for some lighter straps and some bracers if you're wanting a little bit more flexibility.
Quivers, really flexible belts. I will say, even though I very often go for the very heavy 10 ounce durable belts, sometimes having a 4 or 6 ounce belt can be very soft. It can be very flexible. So depending on it's probably not a real good load bearing belt. But if it's a shoulder strap or something like that.
If you're wearing a sword or something heavy on your belt, then having a thicker belt is more important. If you're just wearing a thin, light belt, like over a dress or a tunic, and you just want a lighter, more comfortable look, you can definitely go with thinner.
Yep. So what I have here in my hand, this is some saddle skirting. This is about 12 ounce veg tan leather. So veg tan is a key term for those of you that are actually going to work with leather. This is the stuff that you tool and that you carve. This is a lighter. This is probably more like a 6 ounce belt cut.
Yep. So if you want to get a design stamped or tooled into your leather, you need to use vegetable tan.
Yep. That's really going to give you the best look. Now, obviously, this is natural skin color, right? So if you want to, there's a lot of stain and paint options. This was all used to look like this. It was veg tan leather. We used 2 different stains, a black and a brown, and then antiquing gel on top of it. So there are all things that you can use to kind of get your mix and match to get your colors. We use copper rivets and burrs here to hammer down these buckles and straps, and then we used buckles to attach them. But you don't have to use buckles. You can do something like this. This has grommets and then laces to lace it up. So that this is going to be good if you're going to be shooting a bow with this, because the bowstring is going to catch the buckles. This is another buckle, and but this is actually, it is riveted down, but we just use one continuous strap to attach this. I'm trying to think of other examples that we have here. Here's something else if you want some stronger. So I use 12 ounce saddle skirting to make these bracers, but then I added steel splints to them, so that gives them more strength right there. So I riveted those down. So leather work a lot of times isn't just making something out of completely leather. A lot of times it's a lot of hardware, or the leather is the skeleton on which you put other things.
Yeah, the hardware is very important.
Yeah. This is something else. So this helmet, this mask actually is leather. So we painted it to look like steel, but just because you can work with leather doesn't limit you to leather things, right? So if you're working in film, costuming, that sort of stuff, you don't have a forge at hand and you want to add some metal pieces, a lot of times you can paint it to look like it. Sometimes leather working skills can be simple things like we replaced the buckle on this helmet for more, it's not really historically accurate, but at least a less flashy one than the one that was on there that had the roller, the silver and had a roller and everything. So even leather, just familiarity with leatherworking, how it works, how it fits together, being able to set a rivet is a great skill. So having rivets and the ability to set them is something I would highly recommend if you are going to be working in costuming a lot and want to modify things, adjust things, take buckles on and off, that sort of stuff. Something I would say avoid, and a lot of times you'll notice this, is cheap factory-produced leather, or at least leather armor and stuff. It has this glossy sheen to it, and almost like a plasticky thing. I think because they like spray it with like a plastic coating, literally to like seal it to keep it from rotting and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see the term chrome tan, and that's a more inexpensive, affordable way of tanning leather. And some chrome tan is okay, but a lot of times it does give that more plasticky feel, and it will make your leather, it might seem okay at the beginning, but it's far more likely to crack, split, wherever the leather is bent tightly, like around a buckle, it'll dry out and it'll crack.
Yep. So to avoid that, because obviously every bit of leather will eventually dry out and crack and that sort of stuff. I know we use Aussie Wax to maintain our.
I use the same.
Okay, yeah. So Aussie Wax is from Tandy Leather. It's a great product. It's basically this wax that you rub on. I actually use a heat gun or a blow dryer to warm it up and melt it so it soaks in to the piece, and then usually apply it a couple times. That gives it a nice suppleness that keeps it fresh. Then there's some things, of course, too, that I just don't maintain. Like there's some things, honestly, that the more banged up and scratched and that sort of stuff, they look dirty, the better they look. But especially with things like buckles, like so this I'm probably never going to have to maintain. I probably will have to go back and maintain where the buckles, where the leather bends on the strap there with the buckle.
Yeah, and the wax also helps with it being more water repellent.
Yes,
so if you've dyed like a piece of vegetable tanned leather and you then stained it, you're going to want to do something like the wax or some type of sealant on the top so that it will be more weather resistant.
Yep. And if you have a piece that you're having that problem with, let's say it's a piece that you wear out in the rain, like a quiver strap or something like that, and you find the dye is coming off onto your garment, a lot of times slapping a coat or two of Aussie Wax on it will stop that bleed as well. So that's kind of an important element to have there. Well, good. Well, we've talked about different types of leather, different things you can use it for. Let's talk about hardware. So what are some different things that we add on and commonly to our leather work that
Yeah, so I like to use antler as well as wood toggles, and like this is just a piece of antler. So you can use leather loops, buttonholes, you can also do grommets, buckles, but it just gives you different options.
Yeah, obviously you got different types of buckles. We've got lace, so sometimes you can lace things up. And this is something I meant to mention earlier, but something else that you can do is, like, just because you buy something from us or from Amy from Folk of the Wood or from another seller, another craftsman, doesn't mean that has to be this end of the craftsman story for that item. So this is a piece of relatively inexpensive, simple archer's bracers that I got years ago from somewhere online. And then I went in with a wood burner and actually just added some little details and stuff to it to kind of just enhance it a little bit. And I've had these bracers, no joke, for probably like 12 years. And they're still hanging in there, right? I've never maintained them, never done anything. So this has got the shiny kind of chrome finish to it, but there's ways you can deal with that too. This bison bracer that I had the shiny finish to it as well, but I went over it with sandpaper, and I just sandpapered it up and just knocked all that shiny finish, or a lot of that shiny finish off of it. Something else I like, you can see here, I have these kind of darkened steel buckles right here. That's a great thing. There's obviously lots of different materials you can use for your buckle. We've got these. I've got stainless steel on these. I think that's because I couldn't get these at the time. I definitely would have used these if I had them at the time. But once again,
antique brass is another great option.
Antique brass is my favorite. Like if I can.
Same.
Yep. This is a reproduction medieval buckle. This is a reproduction Viking buckle right here that I got from Grimfrost, I think. This is a Celtic buckle from Tandy Leather. This isn't strictly historical, but it looks a lot better than most of the things you're going to find out there. And it's definitely a really cool look. Like, here's an example of how I've had one on this belt. And you can even see how kind of the shininess has gone off of it over the years of wear. And this one looks a lot more accurate than this one does at this point. Some other things that you can use leather for, we talked about greaves and bracers and stuff, but this is some lamellar. So once again, you have to think, if you're making a design, is this something that's going to be strictly historical? Is this kind of a fantasy inspired thing? Is this a historically inspired kind of historical fiction piece, as it were? And because obviously there is a lot of information on, there are some types and places where people have used leather armor. It's not as common, I think, as people think, or especially in a historical context. But there's also an element, I think, where if I can look at a piece of leather and I have the same resources, materials, skills, knowledge that somebody who worked leather 1,000 years ago had, if I could come up with it, they could come up with it. So I feel like there's a little more leeway, perhaps, than the historical community likes to admit that there probably is, because leather is biodegradable. And a lot of the pieces that were created, we've just lost. We just don't have them anymore.
This is true.
Yep. Something else, and this is something to think about, I actually have, just because, like I said, you're using something that is leather, does not mean that the item has to be completely leather. And this rack is about to fall over. And, well, it didn't. Okay. So these are some Gambesons right here. So we've got, once again, these historically inspired brass buckles on them. And then this one right here has ties on it. So this is something to think about. I prefer Gambesons with ties because a lot of times I'm wearing chainmail or a breastplate or something over it. And if that presses against you and there's a buckle right there.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, you can feel it and it kind of, or if you fall on it, or it just has a funny looking little nub there. So, even if a buckle is more secure than, say, lace, or maybe a little faster, maybe you don't want to use it because in the long run, it makes more sense either aesthetically or practically to use a different type of attachment system, like a toggle, like a piece of lace, or a button even, as opposed to something like a buckle. Because the buckle is kind of the quick, easy fix, so you'll see a lot of people use buckles on stuff. When I feel like, because buckles are so easy to produce and so cheap now, a lot of people do that when in a historical context it probably would not have been quite as prevalent.
No, probably
yeah.
not.
So, well, folks, that's a lot of information I know, and I know we've kind of gone all over the map on this stuff. We hope you found it useful. I would say the bottom line, whenever I'm looking, you will never find better quality stuff when it comes to leatherwork than from an individual craftsman. Something that's been hand cut, not laser cut. Something that's been hand dyed or stained, not dyed or stained in a factory. And then the other thing too is that just wear, and the longer you use an item, the better it looks. I saw your pouch. It's got great wear on the edges. It's darkened. Same thing with like things like this. They just, that sort of stuff is something you can't almost reproduce without actually going out and wearing it and using it. So the great thing about, even if you get your piece and it's a little shiny, it's a little crisp, it's a little new, just go out there and wear it, and very soon it'll have that worn, broken in.
It'll develop its own patina, and the leather will no longer creak, and it will get more flexible with use and time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it'll just be more enjoyable to use. This is a relatively, like I said, new pair of Ranger bracers compared to, I don't like wearing these as much as I like to wear the ones, even they're probably not as well made that I made 5 years ago, just because they're more comfortable. The other ones
they break in.
It's like a pair of shoes, right? So anyway, we hope this was helpful. But we always do recommend, if you're going to get a piece of leather work, most people don't wear a ton of leather items, maybe a belt, a pouch, some bracers or something like that. So it's worth spending the money to get it made by a good craftsman. And it's, especially when those are good materials and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and also, the artists and the designers have actually tested the items and actually worn them and known how the straps fit, like you were talking about with the gambeson and the buckles, and how it actually feels to wear, which is different. Yeah. The
reason I ended up getting into this industry was I literally spent an absurd amount of money on leatherwork, and I thought I had better make some of this back because I wasted so much money. So unless you're ready to start a hobby, you're just going to chunk a ton of money down into a hole, as entertaining as it may be for the next couple of years. I highly recommend getting a good quality piece right at the beginning, like Amy said, and I'm the same way. The reason we started making it was 5-10 years ago you couldn't get this sort of stuff online, and now it's available. That's because of people that were inspired the way we were, and wanting to create more authentic, more durable, more realistic pieces. So we'll have a link to Amy's shop in our bio. We'll also have a link to our shop, and then some of our other videos that you guys may find helpful. As always, please like this video if you can. Comment if you have any questions or any other video suggestions. Subscribe to the channel. I think there's a new thing. You can turn bells and alerts on. You guys know, you do YouTube probably more than we do. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amy, for being here and
thanks for having
contributing stuff. Absolutely. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.